What's going on, guys? I really like this one. I might start selling this one. I got to be honest. Let's get right into it. Joe Rogan is pissed. Joe Rogan has a philosophy of posting and ghosting, which means he doesn't like to interact with the people on Twitter or Instagram or YouTube comments. He says he doesn't like to read things about himself because it just puts him in a bad mood. And he's broken all those rules, all of them. Robert F. Kennedy and Peter Hotez. So Robert F. Kennedy is in one camp when it comes to medical procedures, and Peter Hotez is in the pro these medical procedures. And Joe Rogan decided, hey, Peter, why don't you debate RFK Jr.? And a whole Twitter beef got started. It's pretty crazy. Let me just show you guys to the store real quick. You've heard of the Great Reset. Well, this is the Great Resist, newest design by Coach Colin himself. And you guys know about the Soul Not For Sale clothing as well. We got hoodies, t-shirts. Let me show you a t-shirt. I got to get one with the American flag on it. I really got to do that. But I got to make it with my own hands. Can't have somebody else do it for me. It doesn't feel right. But you guys know about this. Soul Not For Sale, anti-WEF stuff, and the Great Resist stuff. If you bought anything from the store, you are tremendously appreciated. You have no idea how much it helps us. Now let's get right into the actual video. Yeah, there's a whole beef that went down. Let's get right to it. Boom. So it started with this. It's a Vice article. So Vice, I told you this would happen with Joe Rogan. I told you there would be a whole bunch of people who had a problem with him interviewing RFK, and it started right away. So Vice made this. I blanked out the words that I had to blank out. Oh, it's already moving. Sorry, let's move here. I'm using a different thing today. So Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's misinformation. Now, this stems from, if you've seen the RFK podcast, everything that they talked about. They talked about the whole pandemic, and they talked about a myriad of things when it came to the medical industry, right? So this person from Vice, her name is Anna Molaron? Moron? No, I'm kidding. McFarn or something like that. But either way, she's a super woke, super left-leaning type of lady, and she decided to write this whole smear about Joe Rogan, talking about how his podcast with RFK was just 3 hours of unchecked nonsense, calling him a conspiracy theory, calling, I believe she called him a conspiracy theorist, and RFK as well. And it was just a whole bunch of mean stuff compacted into an article. Now, let's move on. Let's see what else she had to say here, or let's see what happened from there. So now, Rogan had seen this article, which, again, I bring up breaking one of his rules. He got mad because Peter Hotez, let's move my, nope. Let's move my logo out of the way. Let's bring it over here. Peter Hotez steps in, and he decides, and again, this guy's he's a doctor. He's very pro everything that's been going on. So he says Spotify, he says the exact same thing she said, which is a little odd. Spotify has stopped even sort of trying to stem Joe Rogan's misinformation. It's really true. Anna Merlan. Just awful. And from all of the online attacks I'm receiving after this absurd podcast, it's clear many actually believe this nonsense. Now, he did not realize he just opened up a whole can of worms when he said that, because usually Joe Rogan doesn't see any of this stuff, but I guess he had that Kennedy spirit all over him. You know, he was just talking with a Kennedy for 3 hours. You know, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. compared him to JFK. He was feeling the spirit. He was like, I got to stand up right now. So he decided to actually retort. Now, Peter Hotez becomes very cowardly right away. He says, Joe, you have my cell. You have my email. I'm always willing to speak with you so you could clear the air, blah, blah, blah. Joe says, because Joe says, hey, why don't you, I don't know why I don't have this clip queued up, but Joe says, why don't you debate RFK Jr. and I'll give you $100,000 to give to the charity of your choice. $100,000. Just sit with him, debate him, and I'll put no time limit on the podcast because Joe Rogan usually has a time limit of 3 hours. He was saying you guys could go as long as you want. You can go back and forth. I'll give you both time to speak. Boom. To this, Peter Hotez says, you have my cell, you have my email, I'm always willing to speak with you. Then Joe Rogan says, this is a non-answer. I challenge you publicly because you publicly quote tweeted and agreed with that dog shit Vice article. If you really are serious about what you stand for, you now have the massive opportunity for a debate that will reach the largest audience a discussion like this has ever had. If you think someone is better qualified, suggest that person, which is very reasonable, very reasonable. But you can also tell Joe's pissed. He just said dog shit Vice article. So he's getting pissed. And he wants Peter to actually sit down and debate RFK. Now, if you don't know who Peter Hotez is, let me just clear that up. He was a gentleman who was on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about, the whole pandemic and everything. And Joe Rogan found out this guy doesn't exercise. He doesn't take vitamins. He doesn't take care of himself. But he really felt like he should be the one to be able to tell people what they should do with their body. He was one of those people. You know what I mean? So let's get into what happened next. Oh, and then Joe Rogan pulling receipts. That means Joe Rogan saw a tweet and then screenshotted it, which is wild. Or someone sent it to him. He says, by the way, Peter Hotez, I saw that tweet you deleted. So Joe Rogan says, Peter, if you claim what RFK is saying is misinformation, I'm offering you $100,000, charity of your choice, if you're willing to debate him on my show with no time limit, like I told you. Peter Hotez, he deletes this. Very cowardly, in my opinion. He says, be serious, Joe. That's what you throw out for hunting with your buddies on a weekend. A $50 million endowment, which you, Spotify, and RFK can easily afford. Not from me, but so we can continue making low-cost, patent-free medicine for the world's poor, preceded by RFK's public apology. Do you know how crazy that is? This guy expects, and it's not a win or lose thing. You just go on the podcast. He expects to receive $50 million. $50 million just to go on Joe Rogan's podcast and talk to a Kennedy. Talk to RFK Jr. Oh, man. Just ridiculous. Ridiculous that he thought he could actually throw that out there. And that's why he deleted it, because he realized, this is the dumbest thing a person in my position could say right now. And that kind of pissed Joe Rogan off because he wrote that. He knows a bunch of people saw it, got 7 retweets, 44 people liked it, a bunch of people commented, and then he deletes it. Very cowardly man. Very, very cowardly man. And he's getting attacked online like crazy right now, which I don't condone, but I do understand. Because Joe Rogan doing this riles a lot of people up. A lot of people. All right, let's move on to the next tweet here. What's the next one? I got this thing on like a slide. Sorry. This is a new thing I'm trying out. Let's see here. Now, I got these, I got the V word redacted, okay? Just for YouTube's sake when they scan my video. If you are serious about, and then Joe says, this is a non-answer, challenge you publicly, blah, blah, blah. I already read that to you. Then Hotez says, Joe, if you are serious about addressing medicine, the fact that 200,000 unmedicated Americans needlessly perished during an awful Delta wave, including 40,000 of our own in our own state of Texas, because they fell victim to misinformation. I want to have that discussion. He's completely just circling the conversation. It's really just a yes or no thing, right? This is a debate we're talking about. We're not talking about some philosophical question that this needs to be answered a certain way. And it's crazy that Joe's asking him a yes or no question, and he's taking this opportunity to get on Joe Rogan's podcast so he can just talk more nonsense. Because if you go and watch the Peter Hotez podcast that Joe Rogan did, it's still up on Spotify. It's nonsense. It's worse than taking advice from Bill Gates. So Joe Rogan says, again, I'm asking you very clearly, are you willing to debate Robert Kennedy Jr. on my podcast? He's making it very clear. Again, Joe's pissed. You never see Joe act like this on Twitter. Never. Never. Believe you me. You guys know. I got a picture of Joe behind me right now. I follow Joe Rogan pretty closely. He never takes the opportunity to get like this with people. And it's even gone beyond this whole timeline that I'm giving you guys. So the next thing is, and then this is another tweet that Joe Rogan found that Peter Hotez deleted. This was in regards to Tucker Carlson getting on Twitter. And for some reason, Peter Hotez looked at this as a Tucker-Elon connection. So he says this: I'm quite concerned about the Tucker-Elon link. Then fold in Rogan and RFK, and it becomes a pretty formidable coalition with neo-fascist leanings. In some ways, darker and perhaps more dangerous than Trump. In my opinion, awful. I just hope Team Biden is preparing. This guy is like an NPC. He's like a sim. He's like a Smith agent. This is ridiculous. And then Joe Rogan pulls that receipt and says, are you sure I'm not part of a coalition with neo-fascist leanings? Seems that's what you really think, or what you're projecting to the masses. Now, Joe Rogan says this because Peter Hotez, I couldn't find it. I don't know if Peter Hotez deleted it or what, but Peter Hotez is like really backpedaling, and he's like, I don't want this adversarial relationship between you and I. He's like, I'd love to just clear the air. He's like, I don't want to do it like this. He didn't realize, just like so many people, like if I wrote something about Joe Rogan, he responded, I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know what to do right now. I can't believe this. It's like James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe sent me a message, and I was like, what in the hell am I supposed to say to this guy? I was like a teenage girl. I was just like, oh, no, thanks for the follow, sir. I didn't know what to say. You don't know what to say when somebody this big comes at you and says anything to you, good or bad. And this is very, very bad. So let's go on to the next thing. The last thing, I believe. Actually, I'm going to pull up a clip after and just show you the very last thing that they talked about. But Twitter beef, man. This is really going on. Let's see what this last thing is here. Or is this the last one? Was this the last one? It was? Okay. No, it wasn't. Oh, man. Let me go back here. Let me make sure. Boom. Okay. So, yeah. Let me just pull this up now. Next clip. Sorry, guys. I'm using a new thing, so it's a little weird for me. And then to what Joe Rogan says here, after he said all that, Peter Hotez says, glad to come on I don't want our adversarial relationship. And then Joe Rogan clarifies. He's even clarifying. Joe is pissed. He clarifies and says, to those misunderstanding what he's saying, he's not agreeing to debate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's offering to come on my show by himself. Now, I would say that this is where it ended, but it didn't. It kept going. Mark Cuban got involved and said Joe Rogan's bullying Peter Hotez. Peter Hotez actually verified that somebody actually came to his house and asked him why he's not willing to debate RFK. Like, this whole thing just blew up into something very wild. And I like it. I don't like that somebody went to Peter Hotez's house, but I do like that Joe Rogan decided, I'm not just going to be super humble and not say anything to these people. I'm going to address this. I'm going to push this. Like, why not? And right now, Joe Rogan has offered $100,000. 4 other celebrities and doctors have stepped in as well, and the pot is at $750,000. So if Peter Hotez decides to actually debate Robert F. Kennedy, he gets $750,000 to his charity of choice. So that's what's happening right now in Twitter land. It's getting pretty crazy. I'm sure Robert F. Kennedy's just sitting there like, yes, a debate. Let me finally debate somebody. But I doubt it will happen, because that's not how cowards operate. Cowards don't stand up in the face of adversity. They tend to cower down, and they run into their leftist echo chamber, and they just live out their days there. And I'm guessing that's what Peter Hotez is going to do. But I just wanted to bring you guys that. Like the video. It helps so much. Boosts me out of the shadow realm. But I just wanted to bring you that. Joe is pissed. I'm going to keep you guys updated on that. Other than that, I am out.